in this self-driving car. This relates to an actual case that happened and which resulted in, of course, death. And the person who was driving the car responsible for it. My name is Mr.Usman Piracha. And I have a background in computer science. My bachelor's is from NUST. I then went and studied in different law schools in the United Kingdom and the United States. This was shared with you in the very kind introduction. I had the pleasure of also contributing to the NUST CERN labs, which of course CERN labs being that credited with the discovery of the Higgs boson particle. I went on and completed my academic career with a master's in law from an Ivy League university. From then on, I went on to practice and work in the legal industry in my third jurisdiction, which was Pakistan. I helped settle out of case the RICO dispute. And I have contributed on international forums, which include the UN, the OIC, the World Investment Forum, and such. So the case that I just shared with you, thank you. The case which I just shared with you is the one right at the top. And as you can see, it revolves around a human who relied a bit too much on self-driving cars, automated something which you could expect an AI solution to do. And then let's talk about examples that perhaps relate more with what you will encounter on a daily basis. So for example, we have a second case, Ivanka. It revolves around a lawyer who used ChatGPT to prepare their case and
live
presented
coverage
it before the court,
YouTube पे
only to realize that the cases that they quoted were all created out of imagination. There was no basis on that case ever being in existence, that they were pleading before the court in defense of their client. And the court, once perplexed, of course, and then coming to the realization that this was all a hallucination, asked the lawyer, who felt quite embarrassed, to be honest, to have trusted the AI, that he had explicitly asked, are you sure these cases are correct? Response, yes, they are. But they weren't. Similarly, we have a pending case at this point in time right now between OpenAI and one of the largest publishers of the world, the New York Times. And the claim is that OpenAI has trained its models on copyrighted materials of the New York Times. So whatever result that the OpenAI is going to give is essentially in breach of intellectual property and copyright, because that, or at least some of it, belongs to publishers like the New York Times. And what does this mean for you? Where will we lie amongst this landscape that hasn't taken shape or form? Are we relying too much on these systems to make decisions for us? And how do we work through this something which sometimes could look like a minefield and ensure that we don't end up facing liability? Like, say, for example, the lady who was behind the steering wheel in that self-driving car. Like, say, for example, the lawyer who was found in a very situation, having relied too much on ChatGPT, or perhaps anyone who would use something out of a platform, such as OpenAI, that right now is in court to prove that it is not in breach of IP. So in that unique circumstance, I will say that we have existing laws, but these laws are not built for non-human actors. The legal frameworks we have are lacking. We know that the advancements in AI are evolving faster than the laws can adapt. We also know that there are different approaches with regards to how different jurisdictions want to evolve anyway. The EU does not like risks. US and China are okay with risks. They feel they need to strike a balance, but if the laws are too stringent, then innovation will suffer. And Japan is somewhere in the middle. So How do you work your way around a landscape that doesn't frankly exist, and with whatever patches you see, they're not even in harmony? So, I have a few tips for you, but of course, given the restraint of time, I will try and make it as brief yet beneficial. First, you must remember that you have to use platforms that can give you the basic assurance that they are providing you information which is not disputed. So, for example, Copilot, Microsoft Azure, they say that for their commercial customers, anyone who is a commercial customer and has adhered to the user's agreement, terms of use, if they find themselves in a lawsuit with regards to intellectual property, they can prove that they are not in breach using the right platforms. Number two, as you must have developers in this audience or even content creators, you have to remember that you have to define explicitly when anyone uses your product or your creation, who is it that owns it? Explain that clearly. If the ownership lies in your platform, then they need to know. If otherwise, they need to know. And similarly, for liability as well. So, for example, if there is a patient who is relying on a doctor, who is relying on a certain solution that provides healthcare and transcripts on how patients need to be treated, then essentially, who is responsible to ensure that the patient is getting the best treatment? Is it the solution that is giving prescriptions, what medicines the patient needs to take? Or is it the doctor that is reading those prescriptions and then is advising what needs to be done? So you have to be clear at the outset when you build a tool to explain to your customers who bears ownership of the output and who bears liability of the output. And similarly, you will also note that there are going to be cases where different parties will be working disconnected from each other in different parts of the globe, and they may just come to the same conclusion because they're interacting with the same medium. Two people sitting far apart, working and using Copilot, Microsoft Azure, putting out liability clauses, prompting the system to get the same result, will not know that they were both working towards the same outcome. And in such a case, it is important that you bring your creativity into whatever output you are delivering. So essentially, the human in the loop features will mean that you as an individual are prompting where you are adding your creativity. If you are writing a code, that code needs to know, anyone who reads that code needs to know where is it that you have personally intervened to write lines of code. And not only do you do that, you also document it. So that tomorrow, if there is a lawsuit, you can say, not only is this creation built on a platform that grants me the assurance that I am not in violation of intellectual property laws, not only have I my liability and my ownership agreements in shape, but that also that this creativity is mine, and I have logs to show that. So with all of that coming together, you have a very strong case to prove that whatever you are delivering is yours. So the challenge, of course, is you have to work in different jurisdictions at the same time. And if your solution is one which is working in different jurisdictions, then you have adapted yourself for whatever surprises may come. Here is a different challenge now. Why are humans the most dominant species on the face of this planet? Intelligence. We don't run as fast as cheetahs. We don't hit as strong as rhinos. How do we do it? Intelligence. If there is a system that is more smart than we are we comfortable with letting it take the reins? Now I'm talking about the landscape that is in the international realm. For those of you who have a mathematical background, game function is finding out probabilities. If we know what probabilities there are for a certain output and we have the capacity to process them quickly, we can find cures for diseases in a very efficient way. We can find vaccines for viruses, but someone who has a malevolent intention could also manufacture those viruses using those technologies. Are we comfortable with giving the reins of this intelligence to people who may have malevolent intention? Or systems who are more intelligent than us? Because at this point in time, not only is ChatGPT, as in GPT-4, more smarter, multiple times more smarter than Einstein, but that the lines of code it is starting to write now are some of the best that any coder could write on the face of this planet. So we have come to an Oppenheimer moment. Those who have seen the movie know what that means, but this is the moment where we have to stop and understand that some things may just not go in the right direction. It's like playing a game of Tetris. If you place a block in the wrong position, everything else subsequently does not fall into place, and the game speeds up, and then there's disaster. We don't want to be in that situation. So, what do? We rely on you, the people. Because it is true, and I have negotiated for Pakistan at the UN, I have represented the OIC, the World Investment Forum. I can assure you that regulators anywhere in the world are slow to respond. So, if you are aware and understand what is at stake, and you are listening carefully to what the circumstances are, people like what Elon Musk is saying or what the godfather of AI is demonstrating by their actions, then your awareness will create the momentum for positive change. Because otherwise, my concern is that right now we are in that position where we are seconds away from impact, and we are still trying to figure out what it is that we are about to hit. We have those 7 seconds. We don't want to end up at 1 second and then hit the brakes. Thanks for your time.
The seamless integration of